all you gridiron fanatics. Glad you could join us here for the off-season version of Gridiron Gab Pro Style, where we gab about all things pro football, from the scoops of the regular season to the scores of the postseason and the picks in the off-season. Let's start gabbing.
The autumn winds move like the thunderous waves of Neptune's sacred palace. And here, amongst the blackened soil, lies the ragged hands, worn, torn, and callous. They await with cunning and vicious prowess, for the warriors have returned. Come on, Dave! Don't do it! No way! Ready, but behold.
Welcome back. And guys, we are going to start our 32-part series. Also, thank you for joining us. Make sure you look us up on Facebook so you can keep up with the teams that we're going to be doing here. I'll try my best to keep up with it, as my other channels are going to kind of go dormant here. But I'll try to keep, if you're fans of my other programs, you guys, I will try to keep you up as much as I possibly can. And as I said, we're going to go through our 32-part series before, as free agency hits and we get closer and closer to the draft. We'll have 2 opportunities, and we'll do the top 10 in the last couple of days. We'll do the top 10 over again and see what teams will have made changes. Of course, a lot of you are anticipating what the Chicago Bears are going to do, but tonight we are going to start with the lowly Carolina Panthers, as you see with my shirt. As many of you know, if you watched my other show, the Growlin' and Prowlin', I am a huge Carolina Panther fan, and I actually do rip them. I will also be doing my special on that show as well. But as we head into the offseason, the Carolina Panthers offseason has been in full swing for over a month. As you guys know, they have a new coach in offensive coordinator Dave Canellis, coming over from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which at first I was not a fan of this move, but then I also became a fan of it when I think about what he was able to do, not only with Baker Mayfield, but I think I was watching another reporter, and he made the statement that he wants to run the football. And the only thing I disagreed with, and this kind of goes ahead of what we're going to talk about later on, is that he was talking about signing a major running back in the free agent market. Well, and the thing I get is that we went away from that last year. We were putting so much on Bryce Young, and we really did not have a good offensive line outside of Taylor Moton. Out some guys in and out to fill in for Brady Christensen and Austin Corbett. And the problem you run into is when you have a shaky offensive line, you're going to have shaky pass protection and even shaky run blocking. And the Carolina Panthers really did have a lot of that. Bryce Young was, if he was either getting good protection, the guys weren't getting the separation allotted, and the play design was not good. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that guys getting separation is key. That's also, it is, but it's not. I think play design has a lot to do with that. As we saw in the Kansas City-San Francisco Super Bowl, in the second half, the 49ers were just walloped by those crossers that the Kansas City Chiefs were running. And when you have 2 play callers in one season, and Thomas Brown and Frank Wright, you don't get a sense of what is what. And probably the only receiver that the Carolina Panthers could depend on was Adam Thielen. But Adam Thielen, let's keep it, he's a precise route runner, very good. He and Bryce Young had a very good rapport. And I did not feel that with other guys. And I don't know what the problem there was. I don't know what it was between he and DJ Shark, but it seemed like Andy Dalton and DJ Shark had a better connecting rapport than Bryce Young did. And that's not good. Maybe... And I know a lot of people are saying DJ Shark should not be brought back. I disagree. I think when Shark was good, he was exceptionally good. Of the essence that they did not develop a chemistry. And DJ Shark's a deep guy. Let's just call it what it is. He's a deep guy. Ultimately, I believe the Carolina Panthers need to improve at the guard position depth. When Brady Christensen and Austin Corbett are healthy and clicking on all cylinders, this offensive line was one of the best under Steve Wilks. Congratulations, Steve. It doesn't hurt. It doesn't feel good to lose, but nevertheless, as Panther Nation salutes you and moving forward in your journey. But for the most part, the Carolina Panthers need. I like what the Canellis is trying to bring to the Panthers. He is trying to bring a sense of running the football as he did with Baker Mayfield. Now, here's the trick, you guys. You don't have Mike Evans. You do not have Chris Godwin. Now, you do, however, have Adam Thielen, whom in my opinion, he's not nearly as fast as Chris Godwin, but he runs very precise routes. And I don't know, I like the way Canellis calls it, but you're talking about a totally different beast when you have Mike Evans. Now, do I think DJ Shark could be that kind of guy? Not Mike Evans like, because Mike Evans is an anomaly. 10 straight seasons of 1,000 yards. Some of the greats never achieved that. But I do think in the draft you could answer that question. I know a lot of you guys have heard me on. If you watch Growling and Prowling, I'm not good with going out getting a wide receiver. But then I had to sit back and think about it, you guys. There's about 3 or 4 guys that, if they're left on the board, you just have to take. And Adonai Mitchell is one of them. This was a guy that arguably could have won the national. Put the Longhorns in the national championship. If it had not been a tremendous play by the Husky defender, but had he not made such a phenomenal play, Texas arguably wins this game. And looking at his rating, brought to you by NFL Draft Buzz. This is a guy whose 40 time is what I'm looking at. Because the two guys, of course, you've got Keon Coleman, which in my opinion, I think his draft stock is going to fall a little bit. I really think his stock is going to fall just a little bit because of Jordan Travis not being there. And a lot of people are going to say, well, he's going to have to be able to play with a I guess you could say, superstar quarterback. Now, I'm not saying Bryce Young can't be a superstar, which is not true. I think he can be a star. But the reality of it is a lot of our receivers in this year's draft have had top-notch quarterbacks that trust them. The only guy that I can honestly say in this group that quarterback really didn't trust him enough probably was Marvin Harrison. This guy arguably could have had way better numbers, but, the quarterback play there was good enough to get them the wins against the teams they're supposed to beat. And we saw when he had C.J. Stroud how effective he was as a sophomore. Yes, as a sophomore. So we're talking about, apples to apples in a lot of ways, apples to oranges because of the quarterback play. But as I said before, do I think Keon Clark is the guy? I think what's crazy is I think Mitchell's stock is going to rise. And the only reason I'm saying that the Panthers should take Adonai Mitchell is because the way they're projecting him, he's the 7th best receiver. In my opinion, Adonai Mitchell was so good at the jump balls. I think this is an underrated thing with all of these receivers. I think Marvin Harrison not necessarily was a jump ball kind of guy. I think it was just a situation where he was capable of directing himself so well towards the football that it was basically, kind of like Rome Odunze. And he was very good at it. Malik Neighbors, same thing. But Adonai Mitchell was so good at catching those jump balls. I think this is exactly what Bryce Young needs. And if you look at the games he had against the Falcons and the games he had against the Packers, he was able to throw the ball down the field with confidence. And he really didn't. And this is when I hear people say, well, DJ Shark didn't get separation. He's a big receiver. You have to throw it up, back shoulder, whatever. Figure it out. the great ones know how to do back shoulder. And this is where, in my opinion, this is where Dave Canellis has got to expand on the second year of Bryce Young. He has got to get him to figure out back shoulder or jump ball. Too many times he threw wounded ducks to either shark or... I'm just going to be honest with you. You have to, as a quarterback, to take chances. And I'm going to be honest with you. The 5-yard out routes, those aren't ones I want you taking chances on. I would rather you get an interception 30, 40 yards down the field than 5 yards on a jump route that's going to the house. That's just no. That's a big no-no for me. Big no-no for me. And I always contend with guys that say we got to have receivers that can win off the line of scrimmage. Not always. Sometimes a guy wins off the line of scrimmage just because of the play design and the play calling. And I'm hoping Dave Canellis can bring that here. Now, enough about that. The Panthers have $28 million in cap space. Now, we choose to go that route, or we could go after T. Higgins. Now, just forewarning you guys, we only have 28 mil. We're probably going to franchise Brian Burns, which is probably going to take a nice chunk of that. You know, I think at least $18 to $24 million. So you're talking about leaving $10 million, and then you have Frankie Louvu left, and you've got still DJ Shark and Jeremy Chin, which I don't like the fact that Jeremy Chin's probably going to go because he's one of the best tacklers on the team, and that was probably the one thing that was probably a head scratcher when it came to Ichiro Avero, because he loves fast guys that can tackle. And to me, you have to find a way to get him on the field other than being that big nickel. And I was just flabbergasted. It's not like Jeremy Chin can't cover. I mean, he's not a great cover guy, but that's never been his strength. His strength has always been getting up on that line of scrimmage. I mean, that's just like Mike Hilton. This is a guy who was very good tackler. Always a blitz package guy in Pittsburgh, but he developed in one of the premier slot cover corners. And I think what you have to do, I mean, we already know that he's going to be available. You're going to see teams that are come out here and they're going to pay him like a Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah type guy, because your quarterbacks are getting more dynamic with their legs. And to me, this is going to be a huge loss for the Carolina Panthers, because this is a guy you can move up to the line of scrimmage. You got your safeties pretty much figured out. You pretty much know where you're going as far as the safeties go. You have to establish another linebacker, in my opinion. You definitely have to re-sign Louvu. And I think you bring Jeremy Chin back and place him, especially if he's playing this 3-4, you place him in the middle 3-4 role. This is what I don't understand about Avero. Put him in that position. Put him in that position to play that role, so you can put Louvu back on the outside and you can put Burns on that other side. It's that simple. I think it works exceptionally well. But let's look at the free agents that would have to go, because you already know that Burns and Louvu are the two guys you have to get. And probably this is going to be a $7 to $8 million payday for Louvu, because he's been underpaid for the last 3 years. And you got guys like, Itos Gross-Matos, who came on in Avero's system, who could be that other depth piece that you have on that outside. As well as Shaquille Griffin, who you got late in the season. This is a guy you could sign for a minimal. And then, of course, you got DJ Shark and CJ Henderson. CJ Henderson was pretty darn impressive, especially when you really think about where Dante Jackson fits. He's on the last year of a major contract that's going to pay him in excess of $15 million, if I recall right. And he's just a pretty good tackler. I'm not going to say he's great, but he's like the Mike Hilton type kind of guy. He's the Mike Hilton kind of guy, and he's really a huge piece for that secondary. And what you have to understand is you're at a point now where you're the bottom of the NFL, and you're talking about a guy who, as I said, he's had the opportunity to develop into that kind of a player, but it just hasn't worked out. And like I said, you have a dead hit cap of $9 million, so you get about roughly $6 million in relief if you just traded or cut Dante Jackson. And the problem is you don't want to keep having dead money. Even though you get the McCaffrey money and the DJ Moore money falling off, you still only end up with $28 million if you're the Carolina Panthers. So you ultimately have to spend this money wisely. Now, if I'm Dan Morgan, I have to do one or two things with Brian Burns, because you're going to have to replace him. You have to figure out either a sign and trade deal with him, and you better damn well get what you can get. I believe, now this is just me, I think the Carolina Panthers, if they're going to part ways with Burns, they need to go ahead, get him to sign the tender, and basically make this deal before the draft. You have to get compensation this year. Forget all that dumb stuff Scott Fitterer did, because you were getting offered 2 firsts from the Rams. Even though those picks would not have been effective, guess what? You still get a place in the first round. That's a huge difference from not being picking in the first round and getting that high pick. Because guess what? You arguably could have taken both your first picks. Taking your first pick this year and your second pick this year. Trade up and get somebody like a Rome Odunze, or you could have gotten I don't think you could have gotten Marvin Harrison Jr., but you possibly could have traded up to get somebody like a Malik Neighbors or even the Keon Clark. I mean, it was endless what you could have done. But you can't talk about what Scott Fitterer failed to do when he was the GM. But here's what you can do. As I said, if you're going to make a deal for Brian Burns, which ultimately, looking at this cap and him being the best player, and you have to pay Derek Brown next year, you're going to have to start over from scratch. And I would say, ultimately, what you need to do if you're the Carolina Panthers, you have to trade to somebody that is going to give you 2 firsts. Or better yet, they give you a first this year and a second this year. A team that has that kind of luxury. And ultimately, looking right here, you guys, and this could be, I know this is going to sound counterproductive for the Carolina Panthers, because they could have just done this last season and it would have saved a lot of headache. But the Carolina Panthers could revisit exactly where they were last year. With the Bears having 2 firsts, and looking here at the second round, the Bears gave up their second to the Commanders in that Montez Sweat trade. But the Bears could get the guy they wanted, which I'm pretty sure they're not going to do this if they trade Justin Fields, which a lot of speculation is that they will, and I will go in that direction in the next show. But I'm looking at it and I'm thinking to myself, you guys, the Commanders very well with 2 second-round picks could possibly give us 2 second-round picks. They're both their second-round picks and a first next season. Now, a lot of people will say that makes no sense to go after a guy like Brian Burns, but, ladies and gentlemen, let us see something else. The Commanders have a slew amount of cap space. I mean, just absolutely bukus of money. I think it's like $60 million worth. They could afford to take on Brian Burns' contract and rebuild from where the Montez Sweat era and the whole Chase Young experiment, which I thought this was a guy that was arguably, you're looking at Joe Burrow and the Bengals making a decision to pass on him was a smart move. But they need some pass rushers. And honestly, the best way you start with that, because honestly, more than likely, the Commanders are going to go after a quarterback. So if I'm the Commanders, I trade those 2 seconds and the pick next season, because you've got the weapons that you have. Go and get Brian Burns. And I think the Panthers need to make that move. The Panthers need to jump on that. Not a lot of people are going to say, 2 seconds? Well, you're not going to get anything. You get a first this year in 2 seconds. Guess what? Now you got 3 second-round picks. You can fill a lot of positions here. You don't have a first pick unless you feel like there's a guy in there that you just have to snatch up, but you're getting 3 seconds. You can go receiver, you can go corner, and then you can even go trade that other second round pick and go down a little bit and get you a guard to play backup. There's a lot of places you can go. I mean, you could even get the backup to Chuba Hubbard, because honestly, with the money that you will have, if you can get Burns off the books and not have to franchise him, you're going to have anywhere from $15 to $16 million to play with. You can either go after Austin Eckler, Derrick Henry, and possibly go after T. Higgins. The Carolina Panthers, I'm going to say it like this. If these guys play their cards right, they could be a player. Not a contender, but a player. That's all I'm saying, you guys. And a lot of you guys are going to say, well, you can't. You're dreaming because you're being biased. No, I mean, I'm going to look at the way the Panthers played. There was only a handful of games they were out of. They were only out of a handful of games. And considering how atrocious the pass protection was and how good Chuba Hubbard was behind a wretched blocking scheme, and the chaos that the Frank Reich era brought upon the Carolina franchise and whatnot, it's actually amazing that the Carolina Panthers were even able to muster up 2 wins. The Atlanta Falcon game is pretty much what got the Panthers the laughing stock of this. That pretty much got their coach fired. Arthur Smith got fired because he lost to the Panthers. I'm just gonna say it. But I'll bring that up on another show. But you guys, let me know what you think about the Carolina Panthers and their offseason, what they need to do. As I said before, you guys, I think the Carolina Panthers, this is probably the biggest offseason they can have in their franchise. David Tepper has said he's going to step away. He's going to let Canellis and Morgan do what they do. I am going on the record as saying that I think Morgan, whom is a skeptical hire in a lot of people's eyes, I think it is a good hire because he knows players and he knows personnel. Canellis is going to do his thing. Coach Avero is going to handle the defense. This is a marriage of 2 houses. Avero is going to be the defensive head. Canellis is going to be the offensive head. But it's all going to be decided as this first part of free agency comes up. Do the Panthers make a deal to get rid of Brian Burns? And in my opinion, this is what makes sense because you have to sign Derrick Brown. Derrick Brown is the guy now. You don't just break the NFL record for tackles by a defensive tackle in a single season. This guy was great considering his counterparts on that line were not that good. But having said that, guys, let me know what you think. Check me out on Facebook at Gridiron Gab Pro Style. Comment. Let me know what you guys think. And go to the Instagram of Mr. CeeLo and see all the other shows I'm involved in. I've got 2 shows that are going to premiere in a couple of weeks. And You Be the Juror, a Hardwood Smack. Sorry, I'm losing my head right here. But until the next time, you guys, same Gab channel, same Gab platform.
But behold, there is a warm breeze that comes from the west. The blazing sounds of victory fuel their everlasting quest. It is a call to arms, for they are here. An army that has the will to challenge and the will to dare.